So hi everyone, thank you for joining today's Best Form Styling Learning Lab. So this is your last learning lab that you'll be joining. That's part of your onboarding. So we are wrapping up with probably the funnest learning lab. It's actually, just to give you a little backstory, we just finished building this learning lab. So it's actually my first time taking you through this learning lab. I used to be teaching the mapping learning lab. I've been teaching that a few months. So I've been jumping over to the styling learning lab, and we're really excited about it because it's really fun. And it really is sort of the last step when you think about your whole store in total. So you start with mapping and planning, learning about how to map out your floor set. You go through storytelling, you go through how to make adjustments in the filters learning lab. And of course, prior to that, you learned all about business acumen, how to dig into your reporting, and how do you take all of that information in conjunction now wrapping up with styling. So that's what we're going to go through today, really looking at how do we drive customer engagement, as well as driving our KPIs through styling. So I'd love it's a smaller group, so I'd love a lot of participation. Once I go to share my deck, it's a little hard to follow sometimes in the chat function because I only see a little square. However, feel free to jump in at any time. Today's learning lab is scheduled for 90 minutes. I think we can get through it a little faster, so to give you some time back. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen so we can jump into the deck.
I have a real quick question just before we get started. For the mapping portion of this learning lab, will you guys be having that again anytime soon?
Yeah, so we have these learning labs, we actually facilitate those once a month. So for all new hires, we have, basically we have 5 learning labs that we facilitate to all new hires. And anyone that's joined us, you know, in the past or are with us already and like a refresher could potentially join in as well. But we do record the calls as well, and those will be sent out, I believe, in Zipline. So if anyone missed any of the learning labs or wanted to sort of revisit it again, if there's somebody else in the store that wants to listen to them, they have the ability to do that as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, you got it. So again, like I know from speaking to a lot of new STL and MTLs, like it's obviously a lot of information to get grounded and learn all at once. But we wanted to offer these up so to give you a really solid and robust introduction to all of our tools and just our way how we work and how do we look at things and just sort of processes and best practices in total. So if you ever have to revisit and go back because you may have missed something, if you want to relearn, they're there for you to rewatch at any time. Okay, so we'll jump in. Just quickly, high level, our objectives for teaching this learning lab is to really understand styling and how it builds the basket for UPT and outfitting. So really thinking about just dressing a bust form, you know, from dressing a bust form to really styling a bust form, and how does that impact your business in total. So really thinking about UPT and conversion, how that drives. Then learning processes and best practice around prepping, dressing, and styling bust forms. So we're actually going to see 3 short little videos from one of our top MTLs in Garden Stage that she put together for us to really showcase best practices on how she gets behind all of these 3 points. And then gain a deeper understanding of how to maximize styling through the floor set life cycle. So probably in the past couple of learning labs, you heard the name floor set life cycle. That's sort of our product life cycle from prepping to sustainment. So today we'll talk through the life cycle, like how do we prep for the forms, how do we execute them, and then how do we maintain them throughout the floor set. Okay, so the agenda is the following. Pretty much, I said 90 minutes, probably get through it a little quicker. There were a little bit pre-work. I'm not sure if anyone were able to go in and review the AEO Academy module around storytelling. It used to be a learning lab that we taught as well. We also touched on storytelling a little bit in the offline learning lab as well as in the filters learning lab, but really storytelling is an AEO Academy module that you can go and watch, which is really awesome. We're going to spend a little time talking about what is styling, and then we're going to head into planning and communication around bus form prep. And then it takes us into execution, like I had just mentioned, and then assessing bus forms, and then how do we maintain our bus forms throughout the floor set life cycle. And then from there, we'll do some recap and we'll have a little homework for you. Okay, so before we dig into all of the content, we're going to have a little fun. I'm hoping that all of you can participate. So really, I'm going to give you sort of frame up a story for you so you can kind of vision this. So you were invited to a birthday dinner for a friend, and you were so excited. They were having candy and s'more bars for dessert. You are having some champagne, and after dinner, you go up for dessert, and this is what you find. So you're super excited about this s'mores bar, and you'll come up to the table, and this is what you see. So you can just shout it out. What goes through your mind? How are you feeling? Could you have done something differently? Any thoughts? Any feelings?
Like all the packaging and products aren't opened yet, so like I would be personally scared to like jump the gun and open it. And also too, it's just like sitting there. It's not like presented in a way that is engaging and fun.
Totally. I would be like, oh my God, I don't want to be the first one to open all of that. Even though I want to eat it all, but I don't want to open it. Yeah, sure. What else?
Doesn't look inviting because they're already in packages and not opened up. So maybe if it was displayed in different containers with maybe some really pretty balloons or some other things with it that made it more inviting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not really gravitating, right? It doesn't draw you over there. And we're like, oh, I want to try this. No, absolutely. I agree. Anything else? All right. So what if you head over to the table and you see this? How would how would you think differently about this? How do you feel now if your friend is having you over?
Much better. I feel that she wants me there. She wants me to have a good time.
Absolutely.
Looks like you want to interact with that more.
Yep. Absolutely. So essentially what it is, I mean, it feels elevated, it's capturing, it's like you want to go over there, you want to sort of, I don't know, like touch and feel. It may sound funny, but that's what we do with our forms. Like, oh, I want to, touch that fabrication, but this is, you want to taste everything basically that's on here. You're like, okay, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to fill up my plate and I'm going to eat as much as I can because it's so delicious. So really, I mean, what we discussed with the candy charcuterie is the power of styling, right? So how do you really take these two scenarios and think about this as we are working through this session? Because styling, it's really the power of styling, I would call it. So it's really how do we show up in our forms that the customer really wants to touch and feel the fabrication. She wants to purchase that item because it looks awesome. The colors looks inviting. The outfit just fits right and it looks awesome. So that's really the idea behind here. So hopefully you can keep this in mind. Okay. So as we dive deeper into the power of styling, it's not enough to just throw the items on a bust form and call it a day. We need to pay attention to the details and really help elevate the product into something aspirational. So as you see here, I probably should have, I'm gonna do this again so you can kind of see them all come up at once. How do you feel looking at these photos?
I mean, as I walk in, if I'm new to Aerie, you know, at the store that I'm at, a lot of people here, they've never been to Aerie before. This will be their first experience. If they're not sure, you know, is this my style? Like, where do I wear this to? I mean, this is a great example of one, how to merchandise your mannequins and how to style them. But it really shows the customer like how versatile our product is, layering, just all those good things. And I think it's a great idea. Even the fitting room looks are really, you know, everything is very detailed, the layering from the pant to the bra, all the way down to the underwear. Like it's perfect. So I think it's great.
I love everything you just shared. What store are you from? Is it a new store?
Yeah, we're building right now. We opened June 15th. I'm in Outer Banks, Nags Head.
Oh, nice. Awesome. Are you the MTL or the STL?
I'm the MTL. Or I'm sorry, I'm the store team lead. I'm looking for an MTL.
Okay. Awesome. Well, you can teach her for sure because I just love everything you just shared. So, you know, especially when you think about the storytelling piece that I shared earlier, that if you haven't seen that yet on AO Academy, you know, but really, how do we convey a story to our guests? And how does it all connect to her shopping experience? So through bust form styling, we can really bring the story and outfitting to life to our guests. So that's really what we wanted to accomplish through our styling. I also wanted to mention this because not everyone knows this, but we do have, I'm not sure if it was mentioned in the previous labs, but we, in our corporate home office, we have an actual store, and we call it a lab store, and that's where we build out all of our floor sets. So for market design and offline, we have 2 real stores, not open for public, but that's where our home office visual partners build out the whole floor set. We actually have teams that their jobs are to create outfits based off of what the storytelling of our seasonal floor set. So that's why it's so important that to understand, because we might say like, oh, why spend 90 minutes learning about bust forms? It's actually more than that. It's really understanding also the backstory that all of our looks that we show in the floor set document, those are approved looks from our home office. So we don't just like put together random looks. There's a specific theme and story that we all are getting behind that we want to convey to our guests. So that's what we're going to continue sort of talking about, but keep that in mind when you are out on your sales floor and making adjustments. So are we, you know, making an adjustment with the right color? We're making an adjustment with the right brand, you know, not mixing maybe offline and Aerie. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, but paying attention to those types of things. Awesome. Anyone else? Okay. So the goals of styling, I sort of already jumped ahead and said a lot of it, but really, the styling is the art and practice of combining items together to create a look that is aesthetically pleasing while still being appropriate for specific occasion and entire season. So basically inspire styling and outfitting for the guest. For branding, bust forms always tie back to to our storytelling of the current floor set. Educate. I love this one. So educate the guest on key ideas. Because sometimes you may work with a guest and she's like, oh, I love this short. I don't really know what to pair it back with. I don't know what to wear it with. And you probably thought the same, because I know I have. A lot of times I pick something up, I'm like, oh, I don't really know what to wear this with. And then I look at the bust forms and I get some really great ideas. So that's another reason why we want to make sure that our looks are really strong. Outfitting. So outfitting, our focus on outfitting comes to life for bust form styling. So thinking about the whole outfit from top to toe with all of the accessories and layering items to drive that UPT and really elevate the overall presentation. So you'll see a couple of do's and don'ts photos in the next couple of slides where you can really see like, okay, how can we take this form to really elevate it? And then lastly, but obviously also most importantly, drive sales, make the guest wants to buy more than one item. That's definitely our key. So how do we start from dressing her from inside out? So thinking about bras and undies are our core drivers. And then how do you layer the outfit from there and then end with accessories? So power of styling, now seeing these bust forms side by side as she goes from from dress to style, share in the chat function what stands out to you. What's the difference? So if you're looking at these two forms, what are something that stands out to you that's completely different when you think about dress to styled? Any thoughts? So you can, we're such a small group, so even if you want to just shout it out and not use the chat function, works as well.
So, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay, so the one thing that's driving me crazy, these are super flares. So I don't know why, but the picture on the left, you can tell she's a 3/4, meaning her leg is a 3/4, versus the one on the right it's like her leg is filling out the pant until she is flared out at the bottom. So like that drives me crazy when I can tell what kind of mannequin is under there. But I mean, obviously we don't want to see like straggly hanging sleeves. Like it just looks sloppy. So just scrunching it just makes it look a little bit cleaner. And then no one wears their shirt buttoned up like that. Like no one. So putting that bralette under there and showing how you'd actually wear it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Good call out.
Can I
Anyone
just say,
else seeing anything?
I just like how everything's scrunched up, but I always think that customers, when they see a full outfit, they're more apt to buy it, especially when it's put together nice and neatly. And the more layering, if there's got layering pieces, it's a great add-on to add more units per transaction. So I think that's always great when you have a nice bust form that's really put together, and then people always go, oh, I wanted to get that as a gift for somebody and get every piece on there.
Totally. What store are you from?
What store? No, we're opening up. We're going to be at Somerset, and the store number is, what is the store number? 3871. I'm Rochelle. 79, sorry.
Oh, okay. What state are you from?
Michigan.
Where's your store? Oh, nice. Yeah, we'll have a lot of new store openings. I'm opening up 3 stores in the next couple of weeks. So definitely lots of new stores. So
are you coming to Troy, Michigan?
I'm not. I actually should have probably started with introduction. I forgot. I'm actually based out of New England. So I'm based out of Boston. So I support District 307. So I will not be coming to Detroit. But any support you need, I'm sure I can figure out how to help you. I don't think we have an MVL over there. But yeah, no, great. Those were all great call outs. I love how you pointed out, you know, the whole driver behind, you know, for the guest. Obviously, guest is our number one filter to make sure that we show up for the guests. So that's all great. So in my mind, the way how I tie this together is the left form is like that charcuterie board that I was very disappointed in. And then the right form is like that fun, you know, charcuterie board I just want to eat everything off of. So definitely that's how you sort of can remember how to think about this. So really, how do we show up for our guests the best way? So perfect. So I don't know, but our next session is a little tiny breakout. I don't know if everyone is in a store, but what we would love to do is just to take a couple of minutes for you to, or whoever's in the store, I'm not sure if everyone is, if you were able to run out to your sales floor for a couple of minutes and just find a bus form and take a photo of it. And if you can't take a photo, just, you know, remember what you're seeing. So keep all these things in mind that we just discussed. Just you can run out to your sales floor, find a bus form, and just take a look at those bus forms and then come back. We'll give it, you know, 3 to 4 minutes. Okay, I think people are back. Anyone willing to share? What did you see? Any reflection on the small portion we just reviewed? Anything you looked at differently or anything that stood out to you? Anyone willing to share?
So I'm currently at an American Eagle doing training for Aerie, so that's that. But I just went out there and quickly looked at one of their mannequins, and I liked that they used styling pins to really show the true fit of um, the mannequin. I think the mannequins are obviously not human size, so it's nice to show like it is a fitted shirt or it is looser, but it's supposed to be cropped or, you know, using those styling pins. So I just appreciated that.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, so I went out and looked at the bus form we had in room one, and the way they had it styled, they had a bucket hat with a boyfriend tee that was kind of tucked into one of our bike shorts, and then they had a on the side. They also had some sunglasses, and the way they had the boyfriend shirt tucked in, you could tell like that the boyfriend tee is supposed to be a little oversized, yet you do still have the bike shorts that are a little fitted. But then just the accessories and just it really showed how you can outfit, and that drives your UPT. So it really helps. We have a lot of new people. I'm new. I've only been here 3 weeks. So really how to utilize that outfitting in that UPT. So like how can you sell all those items? So it really looked great. And I took that one first because it was the one that stood out the most for me.
Okay, great. I love that you looked at all of those things because we just chatted about that. So, and I love that you were also sharing about UPT because it's definitely one of our metrics that we go in after strong this year. So, and one way we can do that is through our bus forms. We talk every week about an accessory of the week. And when you think about the form, that's definitely one way that you can drive that accessory of the week is through your bust form. So great, awesome. All right, so we will continue. So the next portion we're going to go into, we're going to talk a little bit about styling single forms versus paired forms versus forms in groups. So you may think about like, oh, wow, is there a difference? It's really just how we are looking at the forms. As you will see, we'll style there's a process of styling our forms, but it's also many different ways of how our forms show up. So we do a lot of single forms. So it's a wardrobe or vignette that has one form. And then we also do a lot of forms that paired as twos together. And then we have grouped forms. So maybe in a table, a center lead, occasionally you'll see 4 forms, 2 in the front and 2 in the back. Occasionally you see 2 forms on one side and 1 form on the other side. So they show up a little bit different throughout the store. So single forms, we typically merchandise with our tables. So one thing to pay attention to with single forms, they're often very layered. So when you work with one form, you sort of want to think about how can we make the outfitting work harder for us since we only have one single form, and that's for that outfitting piece. So this is just another example of how a single form show up. So you'll see she's very, very outfitted here as well with a hat and a layering sweater and 2 pieces, and it's distinct to a color as well. So wherever we place our forms, for everyone that's new with Aerie, we're extremely colored focused. You probably noticed in our storytelling and in our sales floor, we are telling a story of either all warm or all cool. So it's warm to cool, cool to warm. There's nothing really in between. And same thing goes for bust forms. So when you think about paired forms, you want to really find that balance in silhouette and coverage. So when I talk about coverage, you're seeing on the left form to the right form. In the left form, she has a bra top with a long pant and a long shirt sweater. And then on the right form, you see a bralette and a skirt. So often when you're looking at our forms, they're not all in pants or all in skirts or all in undies. It's really a variation of outfitting. So that's where I had alluded to earlier that we have a specific person that builds specific looks for us, and they're really approved when we are walking through the floor set, and when we are building the floor set, I should say. So when you are making adjustment, why it's so important to make a note of this is when we're going through the statement chapter later, essentially it's our way of saying making adjustments. You have to keep in mind that if you're working with a form with a pant, you want to try to adjust it with another pant in a similar color, versus you working with a form with a skirt, you want to try to adjust it with a different skirt, just so you maintain the overall look of the form. And here you can see too in this photograph is that the warm and the cool color story is really distinct. So that's what I had mentioned earlier. Aerie is really about warm and cool to warm. All of the left side is cool, all of the right side is warm, and that goes with the bust form as well. And then the next photograph, you'll see just a different variation of how a set of form or paired forms can show up. So they can show up side by side, back to back. So just a different way too, and you'll see that the cool side is with the cool side. So that's how that shows up. And then in our wall base, something to make notice of is that our forms, we call them, you want to make sure stay friends. So they're pretty close by one another, and they're sort of overlapping, angled slightly into the center. And again, you see a nice balance here between shorts and undies, as well as braless and a bra top, and then a sweatshirt. You see lots of accessories on here as well. Again, very warm to cool in this example as well. And then in the floor set photos too, that's where you really identify when the form sits on the table base. So the little base that the bust form sits on is called a table base. So we have standing bases and table bases. So the standing bases are the ones that stand on the floor, and then table bases is the ones that the forms are sitting on now. It's a pole, which is a flat round base. Anytime you work with a form that has leggings or like full length pants, you always wanted to make sure that the bust form has a table base, because otherwise it just doesn't look good sitting right on the shelf. Here's another example in our bra walls, and this is where you see they don't have any table bases. So I think our model quantity is 12 of table bases, if I'm not mistaken. So we probably won't have a table base for every single form. And a lot of times when you're working with a form that has undies and a bra, you really don't need that table base. So it looks very clean. Again, you see this, the warm on the left and the cool on the right, and it ties back to the marketing here. So something to note too throughout our store, not only is our product very colorized, but it's also our marketing. So anytime you're working with a warm story, all the marketing is warm. And then same thing goes for the cool side. So if you're working with walls that you're expanding, or if you have additional wall base and you need to set additional uppers, you always want to tie it back to which color is dominating in the wall. And same thing goes for the forms. Okay. So just to recap that, any thoughts so far? Anything you wanted to discuss before we wrap up this section in terms of single, paired, and grouped forms? Okay. So just sort of recap here. So single forms outfitted from head to toe. So really thinking about if you work with one form, really making sure that we nail all of the styling and the layering pieces there. I should say, rather than styling, it has a lots of layers. So you see in this photo, this tank table is paired back with the form that actually, I think it's actually one of the photos that I've been working through in one of my areas, where the form with the tank table has two tanks. So we're really showing off a layered piece here with a long pant and then also a cardigan. And you also see the form adjacent to swim. So lots of layering items on these single forms. Same here. This is our palette 2 and 3. Here you can see the colors really distinct. So warm to cool. So again, when they're paired, ensuring that the balance of the bust form is really strong. As I had mentioned earlier, you'll see here in the photo, one form has a short and then the other form has a long overall, and also lots of layering. In this presentation, you really see a distinct range of color. So you'll see a grouped forms, I would say here. You have 4 forms. So 4 of these forms really have some strong key items on them. It's on one of our key tables. The Down to Earth sweatshirt, which is one of our top drivers for all of the spring season. It was actually trending to be one of our #1 sweatshirts ever in Aerie. So this was a great example if you are selling down in, let's say, the blues and the greens that we called for in the outfitting, but to maintain the integrity of the key item, ensuring that we're updating with a similar color, or if there is a like item. So for instance, now we came out with the V-neck sweatshirt, which is sort of our secondary to our down-to-earth sweatshirts. So that could be a great example where you could update it with as well. Okay, so really now that we have our basic understanding of bust form styling, really think about this. How do we bring the story of our bust forms to life? Think of your store as a stage for our amazing product, and you are the director. How will you make the story of the season come alive for your guests? How do we make them feel excited, inspired just by walking through our store? So here's a couple of documents and a couple of things you'll see on the screen that will help us with that. I think someone mentioned earlier that you appreciated all of the layering items that you saw on the bust form. I think you were referring to one of the forms of the flower stand currently with our linen breezy tee that showed off all of the details. So we have the edit. So the edits is in our kickoff. So that's really where you give some really good, you get some good insight to the season story. So it will give you the color palettes for the season. It will really give you any sort of high level insight to what we're standing behind. And that should really help you with the outfitting throughout the floor set life cycle. So if you really understand the theme and the seasonal concept, that's where we can continue dressing our forms if we're selling through. And then over here, I had mentioned a lot about color already. So really thinking about the color story, the balance and symmetry is really around when you work with grouped forms, are you thinking about, are you subbing with shorts? If it's a form that has a short, are you subbing with a short? Versus putting a long pant or an undie on every single form. Those are little small things that maybe when we talk about it, it's like, oh, why would anyone do that? But in the moment, you know, when you're working with a guest and you're like, oh my God, this whole entire outfit is a small and I don't have it currently on my sales floor and she wants the whole outfit. So now I got to redress the form. So it could be at 2 o'clock on a Saturday. What do you do? So it's in those moments of having all of this knowledge that you can sort of like your MTL can be like, okay, I got this. I just know exactly what colors and you know, what styles I can redress the form really quickly to maintain the look. And I actually thought about something too. I don't think we have that in the document, but really thinking about when we are working through our presentation. So when you're going through your level sets of the store, or if you're replenishing, I would always, this is something I always do, I always check to make sure, because all of our forms have size small most of the time, unless it's a legging, it's a large, and we'll go through that in a second. But I would go through all of the stacks and be like, okay, this, if there's a particular item on a form and you're looking through your stacks and you're saying, oh, wow, we only have one small and that one small is sitting on the bust form, we got to update it. So that way you have prevented, you know, a missed opportunity for sale, number one. And number two is it's already there for the guest. So whatever you're subbing with, like if you really have to go to medium because you have 10 mediums, that's what I would do. Because you can use the pins to really manipulate the fit. But you really want to make sure that you have the sizes available for the guest. And all of this information you really get from the source of document. So to really understand what all of the looks are, those are all in the source of document. Okay. So So a little quick knowledge check, just to make sure we're all trekking along. Who can share what resources we have available to us that details out the process and other great guidelines for styling display? So what are some of the things that we have available in our arsenal that can help us with that? You can just shout it out. Any thoughts? Any, I had just mentioned one of them in the previous slide.
Floor set document.
Yes, the floor set document, of course. What else?
I get bonus points for that.
Some of the how-to
Zipline
videos.
library.
The how-to videos.
Sorry, yeah, how-to videos, absolutely. And by the way, have you seen all of the new or some of the new updated how-to shorts that's available in Zipline library? Anyone seen those? No? Okay, so in our Zipline library, so basically in our brand standards library, I know everyone on the call is new, so you might haven't had a chance to dig into this yet, but you can put in your notes. So in our Zipline, we have a visual brand standards library. And in that library, there's everything. I mean, there's everything you want to learn about visuals, every tool, every resource. Within that library, you can find these how-to short videos, we call them. We just started doing these with Summer One, or we just launched them with Summer One. So it's all these little short clips of how to style and how to execute marketing. It depends on what you're looking for, but basically, how do you dress a form with leggings? How do you dress a form with bike shorts? So it gives you like a 1.5-minute video clip of how to do that the best way. What size to use and how to fit them. So those are really cool. So basically, just to show you just how it looks, but these are all of our tools. I'm sorry? Is someone going to say something? Okay. So yeah, these are all of our tools that you can sort of reference. Okay, so we are going to go into a fun activity. So we are going to watch a couple of short videos. So this is Tiara. It's one of our top MTLs in Region 30. She's really amazing. She's an MTL in one of our side-by-side offline stores in Garden State in New Jersey. And she created a couple of videos for us and really sharing her best practices around bust form styling. So the first one is all around prepping. So basically what we're going to do next, we're going to go into like, okay, how do we prep a bust form? How do we execute it? And then how do we style it? So it's kind of 3 steps. So we're going to watch this video.
Hi guys, my name is Tiara. I'm the Associate Merchandise Team Leader for our Aerie offline store in Garden State Plaza. And today I'm going to take you guys through some bust
Can you not hear? No?
Yeah, we can hear it,
Oh,
but
no.
before we couldn't.
Oh, I'm wondering what happened. Okay, let me start over.
Hi guys, my name is Sierra. I'm the associate merchandise team leader for Aerie offline store in Garden State Plaza. And today I'm going to take
Anyone give me a thumbs up if you can hear me or hear it.
over here. So first, I want to talk about our prep work. So we want to make sure we're checking our floor.
I think the connection is not that
Check
strong.
out the breakdown, so we can schedule the appropriate brand ambassadors to start doing our prep work for our customers. As well as you're going to pull all the tools that are needed for your look. So I'm going to start with our sensor over and our tape measure, as well as our T-pins and our iPad to get all of our bust form looks ready to go. So when we are pulling all of our bust form looks, I want to make sure I'm going ahead and pulling all looks at the same time, very similar to batch processing. So we can go ahead and have all the things that we need for this set, as well as any substitutions that you need to make. And in this case, I substituted our polo sweater for a Henry t-shirt in the same pattern. So first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and remove all the sensors from my merchandise. And then I can go ahead and start steaming. So when I do steaming, I want to make sure I'm steaming from the inside out to get all the wriggle lines out. Okay, and then when we are steaming any pants or bottoms, we want to go ahead and fold them sideways when we're hanging them, so we can get any wrinkle lines out from shipping. Last thing I want to mention is make sure that we're doing all of this in our prep hours time that are provided in the floor fit document, and I will see you guys in a little bit to go over some dressing of our bust forms.
Did everyone hear it? Okay, perfect. So basically, very simple here, but basically we want to make sure that we're prepping the outfits ahead of time. That's really the message we want to get across here. So have we pulled the looks ahead of time to building the floor set? And have we steamed them? And then have you really built the looks? So it doesn't have to be the MTL to do this, and certainly not the STL. This is definitely something we want to delegate to somebody, but it's really important that we do it, because in my past experience, I know that this is something that we don't always think about and make a priority, but it's so important to our guests. So, you know, the service team, really, if we can identify someone that's really passionate about this, it's always the best for sure. But pulling the looks, getting them steamed, and have them ready to go when you are executing your floor set is definitely the key. So it's really cool what you see here, and I've done a lot of training around this too, and like when I work with stores directly, it's just really making sure we have all our tools. So is the steamer ready to go? Do we have our measuring tape? Do we have our floor set document in hand? And then having all the looks together, everything will go so much faster. Okay, so the next video, it's all around dressing the form. So there's a couple of things, because I've seen many different ways of getting how she's dressing the form. It's definitely a very methodical approach, and that's how we want to dress our forms.
Okay, Mark, welcome back. We're going to go ahead and start to dress our bust forms. So first, I want to talk about some inspection points when it comes to our form. So first thing you want to check is to make sure there is no cracks in her neck, as well as any rips or tears in her butt. And at the bottom, we also have a screw to make sure we can adjust her height properly. When it comes to our face, we want to make sure we also have all small heels so that she does not stand on the foot. So first thing, when you're dressing your bust form look, you want to grab bottoms first. Her left leg
Okay, anything that stood out to you watching this video, or anything that maybe you've seen in your own store that you want to take back to your store?
I mean, I've seen this done before in other companies I work for, but just the fact that she um, placed the legging not on the actual bust form first, but put the legging on the right side, or like where the pole holds the bust form, so that it makes it easier to put the bust form on and pull the clothes up. So, so that was something that I noticed that that she did, that is much easier, especially if you're teaching it to a BA, or so.
Yeah, 100%. And honestly, again, it seems so small, but like, oh, okay, well, I mean, I've seen it all the time. So people trying to dress the forms upside down or laying it on a table. It's just, honestly, there's one way of dressing a form. Well, there's many ways, but there's one effective way. So it's really putting your foot on the pedal or on the stand, get the legging over on the pole, and then hold the form in one arm and put it on the pole, and then dress the pants. It will take 2 seconds. So that is actually a good segue into our next little pop quiz. Is there anyone that can tell me where can you find, on what tool do we have, how long it should take to dress a form? Does anyone know that?
So like fast
Maybe,
worksheet. Yeah.
yes, good job. Absolutely. I was going to say, maybe you don't know quite yet if you haven't really worked with all of our tools yet, but we have a worksheet. It's called Fast. It's really awesome. You can download it on your iPad. It really goes in conjunction with mapping. So probably during your mapping learning lab, you heard about the Fast worksheet. But as you know, as every other company you work for, we have a limited payroll. So you will get a set amount of funded hours for each floor set. And within those floor set hours, everything is sort of like accounted for. And that includes styling bust forms. So if you're looking at the Fast worksheet, you'll see there's a specific time slotted for forms, like an undie form. Honestly, an undie form, we give 5 minutes, but it probably takes a second to dress. And then intimates and swim will take about 10 minutes. So this is what you really get funded more than, that's why we want the processes down, because this is where you can save payroll and leverage for other things. So if you have your looks pulled, you got them steamed, you have trained your BAs or the service team, whoever is dressing your forms, they're really well trained, you can save a lot of time here. But this is what we fund for. So we actually fund for bust form dressing within our floor set hours. So we don't just fund to build the walls and the tables, but also hours factored in there for your styling, because we know it's so important to style our forms. So yeah, that's where you find it. And that's also where you find how long it should take to build a wardrobe and a table and a wall. And that's really what you leverage when you build out your timeline for the floor set. Okay, so styling zones, I'm going to speed it up a little bit because it's 4:30. So for styling forms, it's, again, pretty simple here, but it's to what to pay attention to. So we really have 3 zones of styling. Let's see my animations here. So the first zone, you think about a whole form. You think about 3 zones. So the first zone is the top. So it's really the neckline, the layering tops, the necklaces, the scarves, the hat, and all the accessories. So I was just sitting in on Summer 2 floor set call today, and actually the merchants talked a lot about our different necklines that we have in our silhouettes for Summer 2. So that's, again, really important to keep in mind when we're styling. And then it's the waistline. So do we, you know, we don't use a lot of belts in the Aerie, but we may have like a satin belt or like a rope or something that we leverage. And then really thinking about the tucks and the pockets and where the hands and the arms are sort of positioned of the top, and that's what the pinning goes into. So we do pin all of our forms, but we want to make sure we don't overpin them, but we pin our sleeves onto the body of the form, and then we also pin some of our bottoms if they're like gapping in the back. And then leg openings. This one's probably one of the most important ones when you think about how many leggings that we showcase on our bust forms. So we use size large in our bust forms because that's the best fitting size for the leg of our forms. We don't ever want to see those tight closings around the bottom of the leg, which you're going to see in the next one. So the next thing we're going to go through from that, when thinking about the three zones, so thinking about the neckline, the waistline, and then the bottom. Here are a couple of styling go-tos. So we do have different techniques on how do we style. So I'm going to actually go ahead and just pull them all up. So when you think about this, if you look at all of them, so we have tucking, we have scrunching of our sleeves, and then the pinning I was talking about, and then the leg. So if you keep these things in mind at all times, like, okay, is the shirt tucked correctly? Are the sleeves scrunched and pinned correctly? And then is the leg opening or the leg fitting properly around our form? So those are really those four things, and it's something I have like ingrained in my head, even with scrunching of detailings on hangers, etc. And then the next slide is really just showing no-goes. So what we just talked about is like, okay, this is not what we want to look like. So the over tucking is really tucking the whole shirt. And this is like real photos that we see in stores that we are trying to teach to make sure like the guests are not seeing this. Too much scrunching, we don't want. Over pin, we don't want to. I was in the store one time and I literally pulled out 10 pins out of a form, and that's also taking a lot of time and payroll for us. So really just a pin per sleeve, and then too much leg. So really this is where you see that the legging does not fit correctly. And I think someone mentioned earlier when we teach our BAs, and I love that you mentioned that because this is a team effort. Like I had mentioned, 2 o'clock on a Saturday, you know, the MTL might not be there, or the STL certainly not going to have time to inspect forms, but we still want to show up really strong for the guests, you know, at night versus in the morning. So, you know, are the BAs versed in some of this and can help us with that? That's what I love involving the selling team, because the selling team uses the forms probably more than anyone to sell outfits from. Again, we have a size range on all of our forms. Most of our outfits, so most of our items are smalls, except for the leggings. It really depends on the shirt too. Some of the really oversized shirts, you can actually go down to an extra small too. So with all of that in mind, with the 3 zones and the prepping and then the execution of it, now we're going to really see how to get the form styled. So that's like the last part in this series.
All right, guys, welcome back to the third and final stage of dressing our uniform look. So we're going to jump right into styling, which is probably the most important and the most fun when it comes to dressing your uniform. So we just talked about some of the section points. So that's going to be the neckline, the waistline, and then the leg opening. So first thing I'm going to do is grab back here the document to reference any bust form detailing that I need to show for this look. So first, I'm going to start with her neckline. So here we're going to style her baseline document and make sure everything is arms are scrunched as well. So when it comes to scrunching, you want to make sure you don't over scrunch, and we'll grab our teeth in so that they don't fall throughout the day. And the last inspection point, which was her leg opening, you want to make sure that nothing is too tight or sticking to the bottom of her leg form. And our base is facing to the front with our leg pull. So lastly, you want to bring her to the front of you. Let's take a look at her, make sure everything is lying naturally and she's styled appropriately. And her form is all set to go to the floor.
Awesome. Any thoughts on this video? Or of all three? So any thoughts, like from seeing it being dressed, from executing it, and now the last phase of styling it? Okay, well, hopefully it gave you some really good insight to, what we have talked about so far today. So really, this is the final step, and now she's ready to go paired back with her presentation that she belongs to, and then we can sell lots of outfits. So really great. So the next thing we're going to head into, and I know it is 4:36, so we're going to cruise through this. We have a little bit of an exercise to close it out with. A lot of this we've sort of already talked about already, but basically assessment. So is there anyone that can tell me what tool do we have that we can leverage for assessing our store? Any thoughts? Has anyone heard about the VMA? I can't see many people. That's why I keep saying like, hello. I only see like 3 people and 2 are not on camera. So I just want to make sure everyone is, okay, perfect, thumbs up, thank you. Use the chat function, that works for me. Yeah, so basically the VMA. So the VMA really helps us, thank you for the thumbs up. VMA really helps us with assessment. So in anything you observe on your sales floor, you want to look at the presentation. Is it compelling? Is it productive? Have we made adjustments? And what does the outfitting look like? That is always part of it. So it's basically looking at how does the product show up on the presentation? How does the clarity of offer show up? So that's marketing. And then how does bus form show up? How does that look like? So that's basically how you use the VMA. So within the VMA, you really think about the floor set life cycle. So when we say assessment, it's really after execution. You've executed the floor set, now you're assessing it. So now you're checking back to see, was everything executed per document, or if you sold through in something, did you make adjustments? So then from assessment, you really go into sustainment. Sustainment is really all around adjusting product. So once we are selling through, so you see the floor set life cycle here, it ends with sustainment. Sustainment is the last sort of puzzle of the floor set life cycle. It's really as you go through the floor set, you're going to sell through a product. You're going to run out of those key looks that are shown in the document. So now it's about learning. Well, we've sort of talked about this the whole way, but throughout this course, we're really thinking about how to use sub those items that you've sold through. And that's really the next sort of page here. It's within the visual styling guide, you can find some great information on bus form substitutions. So it really goes into pretty much everything we talked about: color, silhouette, texture, pattern. What are the looks for, we stand for? Like, what are the theme of room 1? What are the theme of room 2? So in room 2, it's all about offline. You wouldn't necessarily bring up a swimsuit in room 2 because we're not standing for swim in room 2. It's all about offline. Same thing in room 1. So really thinking about when you are selling through the key looks that we show in the document, how do I adjust? What are some of those factors you have to think about when you're adjusting? Because remember, all of our looks are signed off of and they tell a story. So, you know, if we are 3 weeks into the floor set and we've sold through on a lot of those looks, now it's time to adjust them. So we wanted to make sure that we're protecting the look of the form throughout the life cycle of the floor set. So this page in the library really helps us with that. So here's our little exercise, and I'd love to volunteer, or you can just shout out too. Really great discussion so far, but now let's see how substitutions can be addressed in a paired form. So we just talked about, you know, we're 3 weeks into the floor set, you've sold through in your bust from look, so now what do you do? So what you see here is obviously paired forms. And you're selling through in the forms on the right-hand side. What do you do? How about this example here? So on the right-hand side of the wall, and then the pop-up photo, we have adjusted with these looks. How do you feel about these looks? Do you agree on these looks, or do you think we could have done something differently? What stands out to you?
Not in the same color palette.
Yes, perfect. Love it. It's the warm. So now we've got warm forms on the cool side. Anything else? Not really, right? It's mostly, the outfit's okay. They're just in the wrong color. How about this one? Any thoughts of this one? Is this better outfit, or would you have done something differently? Okay, what about this one? Is everyone still there?
I could be looking at it wrong, but the striped shirt, maybe she needs to turn a little bit more, or I could be looking at it wrong. But otherwise it looks good to me.
Yes, it's the best one. So basically, I think everything I've sort of talked about frames it up here. So this one is still good, you know, it's cool color palette. It's the same products in the wall. You have a gray short versus a gray jogger. You got the undies, you got a long sleeve. You know, this one here has a bra top, and this is a t-shirt. So, but it's the same color, so it's still good. But this one is the best one because, as I had said earlier, we just flexed in different pants. She's in a pants. I got a gray pants in a different style, so I kept the same look. I have a different bra top because this form had a bra top. I just changed it to a different style. It's still the same, I'm sorry, it's just a different silhouette, but it's still the same style of the bra top. And then the same thing with the shirt. It's a similar texture and a similar pattern. So this was the best outfit to switch it to. So pretty much ties up everything we've talked about. So making adjustments to make sure that the original look that we are keeping the intent of the original look when we're updating our forms. Okay, so beyond bust form styling, we got couple of other tools or a couple of other inspirational areas of our store that sort of tells the story. So we've got the style bar that someone had mentioned earlier. This one is so important because I think we can make this one really great. I see some really great styling in some stores, and in some stores, we set it with the floor set and we may not update it until the next floor set. So just remember, this is what the guests see in the fitting room. So when you have those passionate selling BAs, they really leverage these style bars to sell looks to the guest. So really the MTL and the service team really getting behind to keep this really fresh at all time, but then also leverage the selling BAs to update as well, because they really use it for selling. I see it all the time. And then in fitting rooms, lots of different elements. We have the bra board. It's a type of styling. It's not a form, but it's a style board. So ensuring that we are really digging into our bra boards to make sure that they are telling the story too, in the colors that we want to show off along with the marketing. And then we have our selfie wall. And the selfie wall we update depending on the theme of the floor set. So like the sunflower comes down and the gingham cover just got discarded. So, but this is from the spring floor, so that was our theme. And then of course you have the product presentation. So styling doesn't not necessarily just show up in forms. Styling is really throughout the entire store, and also ties, together with how do we style our product in presentation. Scrunching sleeves, making sure that we have really strong folds, that things are edged and folded the right way, because that also makes a difference. And when things are hanging on hangers, do we scrunch the sleeves? We don't roll the sleeves in donuts, we scrunch. And then are we finger spacing? Are we ensuring that the products are hanging straight on the hangers? So it's really like, how do we show up for the guest through all of that? And it's not always easy, but that's why we do these trainings, to really try to get everyone in the store to do the same things. All right, so let's recap, because it is 4:45, so we're going to recap. So, it's right here. What are some best practices you've learned that you can apply throughout the course's life cycle? How will you apply what you learned today in your store? So maybe how would you apply what you learned today in your store? Probably is the best one to sort of close it out. So anyone that's willing to sort of shout out any big learnings today or anything you want to take back to your store?
With me being new, just really utilizing the tools that is in the library around, styling, and just even down to the floor set documents and utilizing those. So definitely just getting grounded in, utilizing those tools for me will best help me so that I can be a better partner for my MTL. But she's fabulous, but it would definitely help me. So I appreciate the conference call we had today.
Awesome, thank you. Anyone else? So I want to make a comment to what you just said, because I actually love what you just said, you and STL. So obviously a lot of these things that we talked about today is really the responsibility of the MTL. Everyone's responsible, but really it's a piece. But styling really, it's important. The more you can get people cross-trained, the better, because the MTL is not always going to be there, but that's probably the person that will inspect everything at all times. But what you had said about learning where the tools and how to find the tools and where the tools are, is really as an STL, like, do you know enough to be able to inspect? So going through this training, you may not be the one who's executing all of this, but it actually gives you really good insight to what to look for. So you can actually, when you go through the assessment with your MTL, when you're going through the VMA, you can quickly identify a really great form versus not a so great form. So then, like, how do we, you know, correct some of those things? So thank you. All right, we have time for one more if anyone has wanted to say something.
Well, I feel like this is a simple one, but it really helped me just putting the pant on the pole first, because I have been redressing some bust forms and I like always forget to do that, I think. But the MTL that was in the video, she just made it look very easy. And I feel like it just helped speed up the process.
Yes, I know. It seems so, when I'm watching a video and we are teaching all this, it's like, oh, it seems like so small to teach. But it's like, wow, I do see it all the time, especially when I go to NSOs. I'm like, oh, people having forms upside down. I'm like, oh, no. There's a much easier way. So if you think about all these little things that you can define or refine to make it quicker, you'll get a lot more hours back. All right, so let's wrap this up. So we've got some homework. So hopefully, especially if there's some MTL on the call today. So earlier you had to head out to your floor and you have looked at some of your forms. So going through this whole training, you might have a new perspective, a new outlook on styling forms. So maybe you want to head back to the floor. Maybe it's not today, but maybe it's another day that you want to redress a couple of forms, or you can even like try yourself, like just dress a form. If you're brand new MTL and you've never built a floor set here before, maybe you just like pick out one outfit and just dress a form, just like Tiara did in the 3 videos, and style it, steam it, and just look back and be like, okay, this is how we're going to dress the forms for summer 2. And then if you have an MVL, you can take a photo, you can send it to MVL, or you can send it to the district manager. But it's more for fun. We just really wanted to make sure that you took all of your learnings today and applied it. So the goal is that we are teaching, a BA. So when we do build our floor set, we'll spend as little time as, well, it's a little time, I don't want to say that, but like you can do this really quickly and maybe gain back some hours, because like I said, you do get funded for dressing forms. All right, but that sort of wraps us up. Is there anyone else that have anything before we close out? All right. Well, thank you so much, and best of luck to everyone. Bye.